Thank you, Sophie. Good to have you with us. Coming up on tonight's BBC London. Schools closed and residents concerned as foul-smelling smoke continues to waft across southwest London following a recycling centre fire.
Well, that's the recycling centre where this fire is still smouldering, and it absolutely stinks around here. It's like being on top of an ashtray, and that's what the local residents are breathing in as well.
Also ahead this evening.
How are you, mate? Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, mate.
Two dads whose sons were fatally stabbed 15 years apart meet to call on the government to introduce compulsory lessons in primary schools to talk about knife crime. Plus, taking to the skies, London's newest air ambulance to help save more lives after a multi-million-pound fundraising effort. And a heartwarming story of kindness as a bride is gifted a replacement wedding dress in time for her big day after the Dagenham fire destroyed hers. Hello and a very warm welcome to the programme. First tonight, still smoking more than 3 days on and causing concern for residents living nearby. A fire which started in a recycling centre in southwest London at the weekend is causing foul-smelling fumes to waft across Earlsfield and surrounding areas. 7 schools, nurseries and playgroups were closed today as a precaution. Wandsworth Council has insisted air quality is now improving. Jim Weeble reports.
This is what many residents in Earlsfield woke up to. Smoke swirling on Garrett Lane, drifting across the River Wandle, coming from the Reston recycling depot. It's where firefighters have been dousing down thousands of tonnes of waste that set alight on Saturday. Wandsworth Council had said schools would be open today, but this morning 7 schools and nurseries were told to close. What happened this morning? You got the call and what happened?
So we got an email sent through to all parents just from the head teacher to say that they'd been advised for all the children to be sent home with immediate effect. So suddenly it's like, quick!
For Mum Crystal, she wanted more than the initial advice to just keep windows and doors shut.
To keep getting told, please keep your windows closed, keep your doors closed and stay indoors. To me, like, if you're having a smoke hazard, that's pretty serious information that needs to be communicated to a local community.
And you don't think the local council has done that?
No, I don't think so at all.
Now, just up there is the River Wandle, and on the other side of that is the site where this fire is still smouldering. Now, we're on Steerforth Street, just a normal residential street, and you can smell the stench here. It's literally like being on top of an ashtray. And as you can see, that's without plumes of smoke swirling around. Today, on day 4, the council did update their advice, saying, amongst many things, the air quality had improved, that the odour was from the wetness of the waste, and that there were no long-term effects to low-level exposure for fit and healthy people. Look, you can see the smoke is sort of starting to plume up again now, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And it's been
But for Maria, who lives virtually on top of the recycling centre, it's all a bit too late. Do you feel like you've been properly informed of what the dangers are and the concerns are about this?
Yeah, absolutely not. This is actually the first time I've realised that I'm living right next to a recycling plant. We don't know if what we were breathing in at the time was toxic fumes. We don't simply know because there's been no reports that's come out, and it feels like no one wants to take accountability.
The company who run this site have apologised to residents for the inconvenience it's caused.
We're interested in making sure that there's whatever it is that causes these types of fires, and I'm talking generally, not about this specific instance, is not in the waste stream in the first place. You know, prevention is better than cure in these situations.
As of this afternoon, the smoke plumes have cleared, and for parents, good news as the council confirmed schools are open tomorrow, for now at least. Jim Weeble, BBC London.
Let's pick up on this with our environment correspondent Tom Edwards. Tom, we seem to hear more about these types of fires regularly. Are they getting more prevalent?
Yeah, this type of waste fire is becoming more and more common. If we have a look at the statistics here on the screen now, you'll be able to see waste fires in the UK in 2023. There were 1,200. Compare that to the previous year, it was 700. So that's a 70% increase. So far this year in London, there have been 103 call-outs to waste fires. In 2023, it was 120, so there's one every fortnight. Now, we don't know exactly what started this fire in Wimbledon, but one of the main issues, as was touched on there, is lithium battery fires. Now, fire chiefs have called them a disaster waiting to happen. The problem is when they are damaged, a spark can affect and set fire to all the surrounding material. What the London Fire Brigade is saying, these have to be disposed of properly and not just thrown away into general waste.
And what about pollution levels when we have these fires?
Yeah, that is a real problem with this type of fire, and they can produce a lot of toxic smoke. A lot of people in the VT are worried about that. They burn for a long time and they're really, really difficult to put out. You'll be able to see a fire here at Herne Hill in the summer. I was speaking to Professor Frank Kelly at Imperial, one of the world authorities on pollution. He said there could be some very nasty stuff in this smoke. PM2.5s, that's small particles, toxic gases, forever chemicals, heavy metals. He says they do lead to pollution spikes locally. He said shutting windows and doors, avoiding the area if you can. That is recommended, especially if you have health issues. He also said because these seem to be increasing, it is something the authorities really need to keep an eye on.
OK, for now, Tom, many thanks. You're watching BBC London. Lots more ahead, including something new from two talented London playwrights.
Hiya, we're Lucy and Toby, the writers of Six the Musical.
And coming up in the programme later, we're going to be talking a bit about our new musical, Why Am I So Single?
Two fathers whose teenage sons were murdered 15 years apart are calling on the Prime Minister to introduce compulsory lessons about knife crime in primary schools. Martin Cossa from Surrey lost his son Charlie last year after he was stabbed at a party, while Colin Knox's son Robert died intervening in a fight in Sidcup in 2008. The PM told a knife crime summit at Downing Street this week he'll double down on measures to tackle the issue.
Hi, I'm Martin Cossa. I'm the father of Charlie Cossa, who lost his life to knife crime in July last year.
Stab, 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 stab. That's what happened to my little boy, my precious little boy, Charlie Cossa, a year ago today.
It was a time for a father to grieve.
Hi, I'm Colin Knox, father of Rob Knox, who was also taken from us by the way of knife crime back in Sidcup in 2008.
How are you, mate? Nice to meet you.
Yeah, good. Nice to meet you. Both your son and my son and many other young people should not be where they are today. It's us, the families, that are the victims as well.
Everything that Charlie wasn't there that night. His last moments were violent. Charlie wasn't violent. Charlie had never had a fight. Charlie wouldn't even have an argument. And we would have to prepare ourselves as a family to say goodbye to my little boy at 17 years old. Knife crime, in terms of the school curriculum, needs to be compulsory. And it needs to start, in my view, at a young age, because I've also been hearing of young knife carriers, 8, 9 years old. Keir Starmer, if you're listening, you need to do something different. You've spoken about knife crime. What are you going to do differently?
Yes.
Because what is wrong with an hour a week in a PSHE lesson?
Take them out of the system.
Sure.
Educate them.
Sure.
Turn them around and give them an exit programme.
Sure.
Break that wicked circle. Break up the gang culture.
My mum said we shouldn't do the kiss in rehearsals.
Is he working on anything new?
I don't know. Him and Dad don't get on. Probably because my dad says potions are rubbish. His only potion worth having is a stiff one at the end of the day.
You know, the hardest thing was saying goodbye, because I had to kiss him on his forehead and it was cold.
You're right. Going in there and seeing my 17-year-old son, just seeing him like that, not moving. He was just freezing, and I remember his hair. I moved his hair because Charlie was quite particular in how he looked, and I was like, his hair doesn't look right. So I started moving his hair.
You're right, mate.
Sorry, I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm all right. Thank you. I'm all right.
Just after Rob was killed, I thought of killing myself 4 times because you go to a certain emotional state.
I feel, certainly at the moment, I don't want to be here. I've got no zest for life. I've forgotten what it's like to be happy.
I've had a personal visit to number 10 Downing Street, and your question to me was, has there been any change? Have you seen any change? Is that right?
Yeah.
Mine opinion is no.
All these decision makers have not lost a child, I can tell you. They have not been through what we go through. They've got to put this in the curriculum as compulsory education, because if it saves just one life, of course it's worth it.
We need some positive direction and action.
Absolutely.
And this new government should bring in new ideas.
Thank you. Thanks, Colin.
Our thanks to Martin and Colin there. Well, in response to the issues raised in that report, the Home Office told us,
we are ensuring young people who are at risk of being drawn into knife crime are receiving the support they need to prevent them committing crimes. We will implement the ban on zombie-style knives and machetes approved by Parliament in April. The ban will come into force on the 24th of September. We are also rolling out a new Young Futures programme to identify young people most at risk of being drawn into crime and creating a network of youth hubs to make Britain safer for the next generation.
That statement from the Home Office. It's also worth saying, if you are struggling with anything we've touched on in that report, please don't feel alone. The BBC has pulled together a list of organisations to access help and support in confidence via the BBC Action Line webpage. You can see the address there. There's also a 24-hour free phone number with recorded information. Next, why the man in charge of policing the Notting Hill Carnival today told politicians he can't say the event is currently safe, and the possibility of people being crushed remains the biggest risk. Assistant Commissioner Matt Twist made the comments at the London Assembly's Police and Crime Committee this morning. Well, our political editor Tim Donovan was watching. Hi, Tim. So what more did he say?
Tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people attended this year, enjoying this spectacular event once again, but there was violence. There were 2 murders, as you know. There were more than 350 arrests, and today this senior officer shifted the focus onto the issue of crowd control, of overcrowding, of the sheer numbers that gather there, and there were several points, pinch points on the route, and several occasions which caused concern. He described 100 spontaneous incidents where either the sheer density of the crowd or the flow of it caused a serious concern.
We did have to step in a number of times in order to sort of reduce the crowd density in order to save life. So I think whilst we acknowledge the sort of the crime often gets the headlines, actually the thing that worries me most is the crowd density and the potential for a mass casualty event.
So he told the Assembly, Riz, that he couldn't say that Carnival was safe. There was a focus he put particularly on stewarding. There were 70 fewer stewards this year, but all the indications were that maybe the numbers attending were still up. And one reason for that was that the funding had remained flat. There'd been no increase. So that was definitely an area which needed to be looked at, because it meant that a lot of police, thousands, more than 1,000 of officers, would have to backfill doing the role, fulfilling the roles he thought that stewards should be doing. It has led again to some, like the chair of the police committee, to suggest the location should be moved.
We've had people murdered this year. We have police that cannot go to crime when they see it because they cannot move. They're in like sardines. Surely it would be much safer put in a more controlled area.
It wasn't for the police to decide that, he said. They don't design Carnival. A lot of people say it would lose huge amounts of character, everything that it stands for, if it is moved. The Deputy Mayor for Policing says too early to say much at this stage. There needs to be a full debrief looking at all issues, including crime.
OK, Tim, thank you. That's Tim Donovan, our political editor. A disability activist has spoken of her frustration over booking errors with the Eurostar service between Paris and London. After queuing to check in, Sam Jennings was sent to a booking office after officials said a ramp hadn't been allocated as part of her wheelchair space ticket. The ticket was eventually reissued with the word ramp written by hand. She made her train, but Miss Jennings said the whole experience left her furious.
She's like, go to the office, you need the papers for the ramp. So I felt like I was being told off or scolded after queuing, and it was a bit embarrassing because there's lots of other people there. Why in 2024 are we still having the same conversations and the same arguments and the same fails over and over again? They just need to stop pretending that they're listening, and they need to actually listen and act on it.
Well, Eurostar has apologised and said Miss Jennings' ramp booking had been missed when information had been shared between systems. You can see more on that story on our website. To London's air ambulance now, and the rapid response medics who bring the hospital to the patient when time is critical. They can get to the scene within London in around 10 minutes. Well, now 2 much-needed helicopters are weeks away from service thanks to a 2-year fundraising drive raising £15 million, and ultimately means more lives can be saved here in the capital, as our correspondent Carl Mercer reports.
Here's a view you may have seen before. Here's one you won't have.
28 Zulu Combine, Heathrow radar, hello. Okay, now let's go to Tower Bridge. Roger.
This is London's new air ambulance, one of 2 that will come into service in a couple of weeks' time.
River north, round the city to the Royal London.
After a 2-year fundraising campaign, the charity behind the air ambulance has finally raised the £15 million it needed, and the pilots are in training.
Okay, right roll, 3, 2, 1, go.
Flying over some of the best-known spots in London. The air ambulance is busier than ever, going to around 2,000 calls a year, but had to replace its ageing helicopters. Parts were getting hard to come by. Chief pilot Sam Tompkins was at the controls over Buckingham Palace. Back on the ground, he gave us a quick tour round the new helicopter.
You'll notice that in the front of the aircraft we've got a much more digital cockpit. For those of you who are familiar with the old style, which was about 25 to 30 years old in design, we've got a much more computerised cockpit here. So we normally fly with a crew of 3 medics in the back. So we have 2 doctors and a paramedic as our normal complement to the trauma team. The stretcher used to be a place that we stored a lot of kit. Now we've got these bespoke designed areas. It allows the stretcher to be lower mounted, allowed the patient to be then more accessible without disturbing too much kit when we do carry a patient.
Okay, so you guys going to make the approach to the helipad now?
The air ambulance is based at the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel, one of London's 4 major trauma hospitals. It can get to the scene when it's needed in around 10 minutes.
So the newer ones need less maintenance, so we'll have more online time, and therefore we're more available to our patients. We know that when we've got the helicopter, we can get to more patients within London in a rapid time compared to when we are in a car. And so the new aircraft are going to help us, in terms of getting to more patients sooner.
So once we're at Battersea Park, we'll get routing towards Wembley.
London absolutely delivered for us. It's been absolutely incredible. From everybody who gives us a direct debit every month, there's 130,000 of those. The people who put £5 in a bucket outside a tube station, all the way up to our royal patron, Prince William. London really did deliver for us, and it's been absolutely phenomenal.
West of London Bridge, another 1,300 feet here from helipad.
The fundraising will have to continue though. While the medical staff are provided by the NHS, the helicopters and support staff are paid for through donations, and it takes about £15 million a year to keep them going. Carl Mercer, BBC London.
Now to a heartwarming story of kindness. You may remember after the Dagenham fire 2 weeks ago, which destroyed a tower block and residents' possessions, We heard from an upset bride-to-be whose wedding dress she had just picked up was among them. Well, the family-run bridal shop she bought it from has gifted her a replacement gown just in time for the couple's wedding in Poland. Victoria Cook has the story.
The residents of Spectrum House lost almost everything in this fire. More than 80 were evacuated, many only having time to grab their phones. Some flats were completely destroyed by the fire and others damaged by the water used to put it out. Lucas and Agnieszka lived on the second floor, along with their dog Zara. They'd been there for nearly 5 years, and they'd been busy planning for a September wedding in Poland. 2 days before the fire, they'd picked up the wedding dress. It had taken a year to make, and it had cost over £2,000.
We are devastated because that was supposed to be our best day of our lives, but everything just got burned down in that building.
I should be flying on Saturday to Poland to make organization about my wedding. I don't have documents, nothing.
Not long after that interview, the couple had an invitation from the shop where the dress had been bought, an offer to come back in and get another handmade dress for free.
Hello, beautiful. I've known the bride for almost a year now. We've been through a journey of making her dream dress, and it was very sad to see her, come into the store crying when she just left us 2 days prior. Very happy, and yeah, we did what anybody would do, really.
It's very emotional, and we lost everything, but there are so many good people that are willing to help us in that difficult situation.
If you love someone, do you want to look the best how is possible?
With the new wedding dress in hand and new passports issued, Lucas and Agnieszka's big day can go ahead.
Our world fall apart, but we're gonna go and do the wedding against all the things on this world. Nothing gonna stop us now. Yeah. Nothing gonna stop us. We never give up. We're gonna come back and rebuild our lives. It's gonna take some time, but we're never gonna give up.
Victoria Cook, BBC London.
We wish them a wonderful day. And an interesting segue to Why Am I So Single? The subject of a new West End musical, and a question perhaps many Londoners will have asked themselves over the years. It's been created by the duo who came up with Six, the all-singing and dancing story of the wives of Henry VIII that became a smash hit around the world. Anna O'Neill has been to see final rehearsals.
Who has had it up to here? Checking your phone 5 times a minute to see if there ever been a reply.
Why am I so single is a question many lonely Londoners have asked themselves.
Reply, so as not to seem too keen.
In a city where the possibilities of dating are endless, finding a partner can often seem impossible.
Modern dating is sinister.
It is sinister.
It's sinister. You heard it here first.
And there's so many like new. There's so much new terminology of there's like a situationship, and then there's seeing someone, then there's dating, and then there's like, oh no, we're like exclusive. My brain can't handle it.
Both equally hopeless cases, so you may as well just tell me what's going on.
The friendship dynamic between Oliver and Nancy is that Oliver's perception of love is that Nancy can have it whenever she wants, whereas to them, it's just not going to happen for them.
There's no question that you're going to find someone to love, that you're going to get the sunset you dreamed of.
For Oliver, it's even harder to find a kindred soul.
As a queer person growing up in this world anyway, you're faced with so many challenges, and there is often, comes with that comes a lot of like shame and guilt and self-loathing, and I think to have that put on stage, that isn't it's not overly directed at people, it's just someone just explaining how they feel.
It's a follow-up to the hit West End musical Six for these two uni friends.
What if we write a show about our pathetic little dating lives, but we present it with like big, huge, glamorous, fancy musical numbers, and then people might be convinced that it's worth watching?
It's about kind of like loneliness and sort of navigating the kind of, I guess, human experience with friends, which I think is sort of something that obviously everybody relates to. So yeah, it's been really exciting to sort of have people from sort of like 13-year-olds to like 70-year-olds being like, this is just like so for me, which is so cool.
Why Am I So Single runs at the Garrick Theatre until the 13th of February. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
Right, let's get a check on this weather with Chris Fawkes, who's here, and I even got the winter coat out today. That's all I have to say about that.
Yes, I'm sure some people would have been tempted to even put the heating on last night. It's quite chilly, wasn't it? And we've got more of this relatively cool air coming our way. A day of dramatic skies, though. This was one of the big thunderstorms working across the skylines of Greater London earlier. What a difference a day makes as well. 20 degrees yesterday. Today, temperatures have been 4 degrees lower and 4 degrees below the September average for the time of year. Now, you can see all those showers piling in across the UK. London, no exception to that. The reason we've got that feed of showers is because we've got the cool air moving down from the Arctic. That gets heated, and it's that makes the big shower clouds. Now, overnight tonight, the showers will clear away and we'll have clear spells. Temperatures taking a real dive tonight. I think probably the lowest temperatures in the countryside could get all the way down to about 4 degrees Celsius. So a really cold night for a September night. Should be a lovely sunny start to the day, if somewhat chilly. But as we go through the latter part of the morning into the afternoon, shower clouds are going to develop once again, and some of them will be heavy with hail and thunder. It's another day where those showers are going to be widespread, so most of you will catch a downpour at some point during the afternoon. Temperatures very similar to today's, around 14 to 16 degrees for most of us. Now, we then see a change in the weather patterns for Friday. High pressure builds across the UK, and what that means for us is that the weather should be dry after a very cold start to the day. Again, there should be plenty of sunshine, but this time no showers. Temperatures about 14 to 16 degrees, so we're still below average for the time of year. Average for London is 20. On into the weekend, well, we start to get southwesterly winds blowing in across the UK. Probably a few patches of cloud around, but it looks like being a dry day for us. And still some sunshine around, but those southwesterly winds are going to be dragging in some milder air our way. So temperatures up to 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. If you're relatively upset with this rather showery and cool weather, we've got much better weather on the way for next week. High pressure builds in across the UK, and it looks like for most of next week, it should be dry and sunny with temperatures climbing above average. So it is set to get a lot warmer. Riz.
Oh, that's left us with a smile. Chris, thank you. And that is it this Wednesday. You know, there's plenty more, of course, on our website, from Heathrow and Stansted having their busiest summers ever to the trial of a British Sign Language app translating train announcements for passengers. From me and everyone on the London team, thanks very much for watching, and do have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.